The headlights caught it first. A small shape beneath the street lamp, dark against fresh snow. Tom slowed the truck, squinting through the frost on his windshield. Probably a branch. Maybe a bag. But something made him pull over anyway. Engine idling in the cold. When he opened the door, the wind hit him hard. 20 below, the kind of cold that makes your lungs ache. He walked toward the shape, boots crunching. And that's when he saw the fur, spotted, tufted ears pressed flat, eyes half closed, crusted with ice. Not a kitten. A bobcat. He knelt without thinking, pulled off his work coat, and wrapped the tiny body inside. It didn't move, didn't fight, just hung there, limp and impossibly light, like something already gone. Tom ran back to the truck, turned the heat up full blast, and drove home faster than he should have. Inside, the house was warm and quiet. He cleared the coffee table, spread towels across it, then laid the bobcat down under the lamp. Its chest barely moved. He pressed 2 fingers gently against its ribs and felt the faintest flutter, a heartbeat, slow and uneven, like an old clock winding down. He'd grown up around animals. Knew enough to know this: you don't warm a frozen body too fast. So he worked carefully. Heating pads, wrapped in dish towels, placed along its sides, but not directly against the skin. A warm washcloth, dabbed across its paws, its nose, the delicate curve of its ears. He filled a dropper with sugar water and let a single drop fall onto its tongue, then waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Tom sat on the floor beside the table, elbows on his knees, watching for any sign of change. The bobcat's breathing deepened slightly. Its paws twitched. He exhaled, realizing he'd been holding his breath. Just tonight, he said aloud. To no one. Tomorrow I'll call someone. A rescue center. Someone who knows what they're doing. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure he believed it. That's when he heard the soft padding of paws from the hallway. Milo appeared in the doorway, a grey tabby with white boots and a crooked left ear from some long-ago scrap. He was 12 years old, set in his ways, suspicious of change. Tom had adopted him from a shelter years back, and they'd settled into an easy rhythm. Breakfast at 6, dinner at 5, the same spot on the couch every evening. Milo didn't like disruptions, so when the cat stepped into the living room and froze, staring at the table, Tom expected hissing, a puffed tail, maybe a quick retreat back down the hall. Instead, Milo walked closer, slowly, carefully, his head low, whiskers twitching as he scented the air. He stopped at the edge of the table, just inches from the bobcat's face, and studied it the way cats do, utterly still, utterly focused, taking in every detail. Tom didn't move, didn't breathe. Then Milo leaned forward and began to groom the bobcat's frozen ears. It was gentle, rhythmic, the same motion he'd used 1,000 times to clean his own fur, but now directed at this wild half-dead creature he'd never met. His rough tongue moved over the bobcat's ear tips, then down along the side of its face, melting away the frost. Tom sat there, stunned, as Milo worked. The bobcat didn't stir, maybe too weak to notice, or maybe too exhausted to care. But Milo didn't stop. He groomed for minutes, pausing only to sniff, then resuming again with that same quiet determination. Finally, Milo stepped back, circled once, and curled himself into a tight ball against the bobcat's side. His purr was low and steady, a motor in the silence. Tom leaned back, against the couch, staring at the two of them, wild and domestic, predator and prey, stranger and protector, pressed together under the lamplight. It made no sense. Cats were territorial, solitary. They didn't adopt things that could kill them. But Milo had. Tom stayed up the rest of the night, checking the bobcat's breathing every half hour, adjusting the heating pads, watching Milo refuse to leave its side. Around 4 in the morning, the bobcat's eyes fluttered open, just for a second, and Tom saw the gold-green flash of something feral and alive. Then they closed again. By dawn, the worst had passed. The bobcat's breathing was steady, its body temperature stable. Tom made coffee, called in sick to work, and sat at the kitchen table with his phone, searching for wildlife rehabilitation centers within driving distance. He'd call them. Soon, He'd hand this off to people who knew what they were doing. But when he walked back into the living room, Milo was still there, curled around the bobcat, one paw resting gently on its shoulder, as if holding it in place, as if saying, "Not yet, not yet." And Tom thought, just one more day, just to make sure. He set his phone down and sat on the floor beside them, watching the morning light creep across the carpet, wondering what kind of story he'd just stepped into. Tom woke to silence, the kind that feels wrong. He'd fallen asleep on the couch sometime after dawn, and now pale winter light filled the room. He sat up fast, heart jumping, expecting to find the bobcat gone, or worse. Instead, he found them together. Milo had repositioned himself during the night, wrapping his body completely around the bobcat, like a living blanket. The wild kitten's head rested against Milo's chest, rising and falling with each breath. Its paws were tucked under Milo's chin, and for the first time since Tom had pulled it from the snow, the bobcat looked peaceful. He didn't move, didn't want to break whatever this was. Over the next 3 days, Tom watched something he couldn't quite explain. Milo refused to leave the bobcat's side. When it whimpered, soft, broken sounds that didn't match anything wild, Milo would meow back, loud and insistent, until Tom came running with food or water. When the bobcat tried to stand on shaky legs, Milo stood beside it, pressing his shoulder against its ribs like a brace. Tom tried separating them once. He moved the bobcat to a larger crate in the spare room, thinking Milo needed rest, needed space. Milo sat outside the door and cried for 2 hours straight, a sound Tom had never heard from him before, desperate and pleading. He opened the door. Milo went straight to the crate, squeezed through the bars, and curled back around the bobcat. Tom gave up after that. By the end of the first week, the bobcat was eating solid food, shredded chicken at first, then small pieces of raw meat. It chewed cautiously, eyes darting toward every sound, but always with Milo nearby. The domestic cat had started bringing toys to the bobcat's bed, a crinkled ball, a stuffed mouse, a shoelace, dropping them carefully beside its paws, as if teaching it how to play. And slowly, the bobcat began to respond. A tentative swat at the ball, a wobbling pounce that missed. Milo would demonstrate again, patient and deliberate, until the bobcat tried once more. Tom sat at the kitchen table, coffee going cold, watching this impossible friendship unfold. He knew he should call the wildlife center. He knew this couldn't last, but every time he reached for his phone, he'd see Milo grooming the bobcat's face, or the two of them curled together in a patch of sunlight, and the call would wait another day. The bobcat grew stronger. Its movements became sharper, more precise. It started climbing, first the couch, then the bookshelf, then the curtains, claws digging into fabric with an ease that made Tom wince. But it also learned gentleness, head bumps, slow blinks, the language Milo had been teaching it all along. Tom realized, somewhere in the second week, that he wasn't fostering a wild animal anymore. He was watching two creatures build a family. By the third week, the difference was impossible to ignore. The bobcat had doubled in size. Its legs lengthened, muscles defined beneath the spotted coat. Tom watched it stalk a dust mote across the hardwood floor, with the same intensity a wild cat would track prey in open country. This wasn't a kitten anymore. Milo didn't seem to notice, or maybe he didn't care. He still groomed the bobcat's face every morning, still brought toys to its bed, still curled against it at night. But their play had changed. What used to be gentle batting and soft pounces had become something rougher. The bobcat pinning Milo to the ground, teeth bared, claws extended just enough to grip. Milo never fought back, never hissed, just waited until the bobcat released him, then groomed its ears like nothing had happened. Tom finally made the call. The woman at the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center listened patiently as he explained everything. The rescue, the recovery, the unexpected bond with his cat. She was kind but firm. "He's healthy," she said. "That's what matters. And healthy means he's ready for the next step." Tom built the enclosure in the backyard, tall chain link walls, platforms at different heights, branches for climbing, a shelter box filled with straw.
He worked slowly, buying himself time, though he wasn't sure for what. When he opened the back door, the bobcat stepped outside for the first time since the rescue. It froze on the threshold, nostrils flaring, ears swiveling toward every sound. Then it moved, faster than Tom expected, leaping onto the nearest platform, then higher, scanning the yard with eyes that suddenly looked. Milo sat in the doorway, watching. For 2 weeks they lived in this in-between place. The bobcat spent days exploring the enclosure, stalking sparrows through the mesh, testing its strength against the walls. But every evening, without fail, it would press its face against the glass door, staring inside,
looking for Milo, and Milo would sit on the other side, paw pressed to the glass, crying. Tom stood in the kitchen one night, staring at the two of them separated by a 1/4 inch of glass, and felt something crack in his chest. He'd done the right thing. He knew that. The bobcat needed to be wild, needed to hunt and roam and live the life it was born for. But knowing it was right didn't make it hurt less. The call came on a cold morning in early spring. The rehabilitation center had a spot. They'd handle the final transition, gradual release in protected territory, monitoring, support. It was time. The morning came too fast. Tom walked the enclosure one last time with Milo at his heels. The bobcat watched them from the highest platform, muscles coiled, eyes tracking every movement. When Tom opened the transport crate, the bobcat descended slowly, sniffed the entrance, then stepped inside without hesitation. It was ready. Tom wasn't. At the release site, deep in state forest land, the wildlife staff spoke in calm tones about transition periods and tracking collars and success rates. Tom nodded, heard none of it. They opened the crate door. The bobcat emerged, paused at the tree line, then turned back once. Its eyes found Tom's, found Milo's. Then it walked into the trees and disappeared. The house felt wrong after that. Too quiet, too empty. Milo wandered from room to room crying, not the loud, demanding meows Tom knew, but something softer, sadder, a sound that felt like searching. At night, Milo would sit at the back door, staring into the dark, waiting for something that wasn't coming home. Tom tried everything. New toys, extra treats, long nights on the couch with Milo curled against him. Nothing worked. They'd both lost something they couldn't name. 3 weeks passed, then 4. Tom had installed a trail camera at the edge of his property months ago, mostly to see what deer passed through. He'd forgotten about it until the memory card filled up. He pulled the footage onto his laptop one evening, scrolling through images of raccoons and possums and the occasional fox. Then he stopped. There, time-stamped 2 nights prior, stood the bobcat, bigger now, coat thick and healthy. It sat at the forest edge, just beyond the glow of the porch light, staring directly at the house. Tom's throat tightened. He clicked to the next image. Same position, same steady gaze. Then he turned up the audio. Behind the rustle of wind and distant owl calls, he heard it. 2 soft, familiar meows. The bobcat's voice, rougher now, but unmistakable, calling into the darkness. And in the background, faint but clear, Milo, crying back from the porch. Tom sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. Then he stood, walked to the back door, and opened it. Milo bolted outside. Tom followed, heart pounding, and stopped at the edge of the yard. The bobcat was there, just inside the tree line, barely visible in the shadows. It didn't approach, didn't come closer, but it lowered its head, and Milo walked forward, slow, careful, until they touched noses through the dark. They stayed that way for a long moment. Then the bobcat turned and melted back into the forest. Milo returned to the porch, sat down, and began to purr. Tom closed the door quietly, understanding at last, some bonds don't need walls to survive.